Hello and welcome again. In the previous video, we saw how to generate DES keys in Java using this class called key generator. And remember, what you do is to generate the DES key, what you do is you take an object of this class with marking here and down as a purple rectangle, which is an object. And of course, you have to call it something, so some variable name. And with this object, you can generate keys for DES, for triple DES, and for the advanced encryption standard. Of course, you have to set it up so you know the object is going to be for DES or for triple DES or for the advanced encryption standard. So you have to decide what kind of object you want, depending on the algorithm you want to apply. Now, you're going to use this to generate keys if you just want to generate keys randomly in Java. Now, in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss on how to generate DES keys when you actually have kind of like a password or a string of characters where you want to get the DES key from that password. So there's a standard way to do that, and the standard way is the following. So for that one, we're not going to use this class anymore. We're not going to use key generator. You only use this one when you want randomly generated keys for DES. If you want to generate keys for DES that are coming from some plain text or some string, what you want to do is you want to use this class that is called secret key factory. Now, you use this one when you want to generate keys from, let's say, a password in this case. Not the right choice of word, but let's just call that a password. Now, how are we going to do that? So I wrote down the steps here, and I'll explain the steps on how we do it. Here, the first thing you have to do is you have to create an object of the class, of this class key factory. That's the same thing we did with the previous one. So we're talking about this class, and we take the object, and with that object we generate the key. So that's what we did. Exactly the same thing is going to happen here, but now with this class. So the class now is called secret key factory, and the first thing we have to do is we generate. We're gonna just create an object of that class of the secret factory. How do you create that object? Exactly the same way you created an object for the other class. Now, because now we are talking about a password, what we want is we want to translate, because this is going to be usually a string of characters. What we want to do is we want to translate, the second part is translate the password into a byte array. And the reason we're going to do that is because the secret factory, basically what it's doing is this object that we created here from this class is going to take in sort of like the byte array there. It's not going to take the exact string of characters. So basically these steps that are here are basically steps 2 and 3, which I'll explain number 3 in a second, is to take that password and put it in a format so we can create the DES key. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to go into Eclipse in a second, because I want to show you exactly how do you create this object of this class and how you're going to take a password, which you enter, and you're going to translate that password into a byte array. And that's an important part of the creation of that DES key from the password. So let me go to Eclipse, and I'll show you how that is done over there. So I'm here in Eclipse, and I'm going to type exactly what it needs to be done to create that DES key from password. Now, not completely. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create my object from the secret key factory, that class, and then take my password, whatever the password might be, and put it into a byte array. So as I mentioned in the when I was writing, so you have to create an object of secret key factory. So what I'm going to type is secret key factory, and I'm going to say the name of my object from that class. So you can call it whatever you want. Again, that's just the name of your variable. Secret key factory. That's correct spelling now. Now secret key factory, and then I want to give a name here for that object. So you can give it whatever name you want. Let's call that, for example, my key factory. And that's gonna be an object of that class, and it has to be an object that generates keys for DES. So remember, this is very similar to the key generator. So I have the name of my class here, secret key factory. In this case, it was key generator before. I give it a name to my object, which is in this case my key factory. I make it equal again to the same thing that I have here, secret factory. Let me copy and paste over here. And what I do is I get an instance of whatever the algorithm I'm going to use. So I'm going to use DES. So remember, the way you do it, you say that get instance. So in the instance that I'm going to get here is the DES, of course. So because I'm using the DES, so I'm going to use DES here. And you see what happened, that Eclipse already imported the library that I needed for to use secret key factory. So if you look up there, it imported secret key factory. So that's one of the nice things about Eclipse, that it actually imports things that you need, so you don't have to actually remember them. Now, of course, I still have an error because I have to close that with a semicolon there. Now, there is still something going on there, an error. So let's hover over it and see what's happened. Now, I have to do a throw, same as before. So this throw declaration is again the same thing that was happening in the other one. If there is no algorithm of DES implemented in Java, it has to have a way to throw an error. So that's why we had that no such algorithm exception there, and of course our import library there to throw that error. So basically, that line of code that you see there already created an object called my key factory, and that object is from the secret key factory class that's gonna create keys of DES for me. And remember, you're gonna use this one when you want to create a key for DES from a password. Okay. Now the next thing that you have to do is you have to put your password, whatever password you might choose, into a byte array. So, and the way you do it, of course, the way you do it, of course, is you're gonna create a whatever password you might want there. I deleted my key factory, so let me just put it there, my key factory. All right. So you're gonna give it some put it in a byte array. So let's say I want to declare a byte array. So it's a byte array, which is open and close the brackets. You wanted to give a name to that byte array. So whatever name you want to that byte array, that's gonna hold the bytes of your password. Now you can call it whatever you want. So I'm gonna call it, for example, in this case, let's say my bytes. You can call it whatever you want, my bytes. And so in here you're gonna have to type your password. Now your password, we're assuming here that this is a string of characters, and let's assume that all is ASCII code, so to play all nice. And so let's put in quotes because it's gonna be a string. Let's put a password there. So what password? I don't know, whatever password you might want to put there. So for example, let's say I want to type my password, for example, my password, something like that. My password. Now that string of characters, I have to convert that into a byte array. Otherwise, that line of code will just say it's an error, because you see the right hand side here is a string, and the left hand side I'm saying is a byte array. So they're not the same type. Now how to translate that string into a byte array, and the way you do it is with this method. It's called that get bytes. You see Eclipse already knows what I'm doing. So get bytes, let me double click on that, and semicolon. All right, so what happens here is that line of code already, the one that what is bytes there, already translated that password, which is called my password, into a byte array. Now in parentheses that you see there into get bytes, now you don't have to put anything there. That's the encoding. For example, if your computer is using ASCII or is using other kind of encoding, is gonna use the default of whatever your computer is using. Now, if you wanna force that password to get into a byte array with certain kind of encoding that is not, for example, ASCII, but let's say it's Unicode, then you're gonna specify that in there. So for example, let's say just what that's gonna give you actually something okay there if you leave it like that. But I want to specify what kind of encoding I'm gonna use. So I'm gonna use, in this case, I'm gonna use UTF-8, which is the standard way to generate bytes in the Unicode with that standard. Now you see there, it says that I have an error. Now that error is because if it's not implemented, if that encoding is not implemented in Java, it has to have a way to throw an error. So what I'm gonna do is, again, you go and hover over it, and you see I have to add a throw an error there if that encoding UTF-8 is not implemented here, but it is. So I'm just gonna put it there anyways, and then that's it. So I got rid of the error. So what happened there is I created an object of secret key factory called my key factory here, who's gonna give me DES keys from passwords, and the next line is something that you have to type, which is your password. I'm putting my password, for example, there, and I put it into a byte array called my byte, and that's all I'm doing there. Now, if you see there, Eclipse is saying you're not using your variables. Of course, I'm not using them at all. I'm not using my key factory. I'm not generating any keys so far, and I'm not using this byte array at all. Now, let's say, for example, you want to print out this byte array. The same thing is going to happen before. When you try to print on console a byte array, it's going to just print the address, unfortunately, of that byte array. So let me show you again. So this is going to be system, that out, that print line, and then let's say here I'm going to use my byte, right? My bytes there. So I'm using that variable, my bytes, now, because I'm taking my password, whatever you type here in quotations, and then you go ahead and print it on the screen. So if I run it, the only thing it's gonna do is gonna print that address. Now you saw that before many times. It just prints the address. Now the way you wanna actually see what is the content of that array, which is not necessary when you are doing this for just to use the key. You don't have to actually show it to yourself, because you just let Java represent that internally. What you're gonna do is you're gonna use the same code we used before to actually just look at what is the array there. So if you remember, that was arrays that to string. Again, I'm gonna use that, and then if I press enter there, so it's gonna import again the library that I need there, which is utilities arrays. So I'm gonna just put my bytes there inside, and again, Java, Eclipse is saying you're not using the object my key factor. That's fine. I'm not gonna use it for now. I'm just gonna show you what that password looks like when you put it in a byte array. So I'm gonna run this, and that is the byte array corresponding to your password. So it's basically what it has here is it has as many bytes as your password has. So I have a number of bytes, and this number of bytes that you see here is equal to actually the number of characters that you have here in this password, including the space. Now, if I increase this password a little bit, for example, let's say, just for an example, it says 1, 2, 3, 4. I save it and I run it. Then the byte array is a little bit longer because I have more characters there. And if I put more, of course, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I save it and run it, of course, the byte array will be longer. So that's how the byte array looks like. Now, again, this part here, this is system that out, that print line. You don't have to actually use it in your, if you are creating a password, you don't want to print it out. There's no reason for you to see what the content of that is. I just wanted to show you that is actually what we're doing here. So at this moment, the only thing we did is we created an object of secret key factory. That's gonna what is gonna happen there is gonna take that password and it's gonna create a DS key from there. So what I want to do now is I want to come back to writing and explain a little bit more what are the two next steps we have to follow from here to generate that key from that password that you see over there. So I'll see you in the other part. So we already created a couple of things here in this list. The first one was we created an object of that class, of the class secret key factory. And the second thing, we translated that password, whatever password you might use, into a byte array. So there are two things left to do. The third part is to use that byte array that we created into to create material for that DES key. And for that, we're gonna use this specification here, DES key specification. And then finally, we can now create the DSA key from 3. Okay, so let's review what we did there in the Eclipse application. So this is a kind of like a picture of what was the code there. So we had a secret key factory. Remember, you use this one when you want to generate DSA keys from password. We call that object from that class my key factory, which is what's set to work with DES. Of course, if you change this one, then this object will generate keys from whatever algorithm you put in here. And I took my password, which is this guy over here. It's the last thing I did. And then I create a byte array, which is that get bytes using certain kind of encoding. Again, you can leave this blank if you want. And then I put that in a byte array called my bytes. Now we're ready to do 3 and 4. So 3 is we're gonna use this guy here to actually do the DS key. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this one, DES key specification. So the line of code that we will have to write down actually now is, so let's do that one. It's gonna be this one. So we're gonna create an object with that material. So let's say we have a DES. Let me write it down. So it's gonna be DES. Probably writing down too big. Key specification. And you want to give it a name for that material. So the material that's coming from the byte array. So we're going to generate that material. Now what it follows after this, it has to be the name of that material that I'm going to use to generate the DSA key. You can call it whatever you want. For example, in this case, let's call that my material, for example. My material. This is supposed to be just one line. So this is just to be equal to new, repeat exactly this guy that is here, that one. So the same thing again. So DES key specification. So we remember this, what this is doing is generating the material to generate the DES key. And what you're gonna do in parentheses here inside that one, you're gonna put the byte array from your password. Now the byte array from your password, this is your password, the byte array is called my bytes. So that's what I'm gonna put in there. I'm gonna put my bytes. My bytes. And I close it. And that's it. So I generated the material for that DSA key. So that with that line of code, that means I'm done here with part 3. I generated the material for that DSA key. Now, finally, what we do is we create the key. And the key, we're going to create it exactly the same as we created with the key for the other part with using secret key. So how do we do that? We're going to use it with the guy that we got from here. So we got, this is the material that I'm going to use to create my DSA key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type. So I'm going to type this one here, secret, oops. We're gonna type here secret key. So let's type that one down, secret key. Remember, that's like the type of your secret key of DES. And then you wanna give it a name for that secret key for DES. Let me call it again. I'm gonna call it my DES key. That is whatever you wanna name it. This is the name of your key finally. That's step number 4. And that of course will be equal. Same thing you did for the last time. So what do? You take the material for your key which is this guy over here, the my material, this one, and then you're gonna generate it with that. So what do I have here? I have my key factory. So that the same way you did it with the other one. So it's exactly the same. So I'm gonna take my object that generates key for DES. So I'm gonna write down here exactly the same as I have here. My key factory. My key factory. Remember, this is the variable I created of this object that is right here. This object here, which is of this class. And what you want to do is you want to generate that with whatever the material is. So in this case is my material, because that's how I call that material. So it's gonna be key factory generate a secret. So let's say here generate a secret, and inside the parentheses, okay, this is again supposed to be in only one line, it's gonna be my material. And finally, you have your DES key from your password. I know this is a lot of steps, but so that's the way that's done. So that's how you create the DSA key from your password. So let me show you how exactly this actually works in the Eclipse application. So as you can see that I had the same line of codes I was writing a while ago, and it's exactly the same. I have my material, which is the material that I'm using for my DSA key, and that comes from whatever the bytes I have from my password, and that is wrapped in this DS key specification. So that's how you generate your material for the DSA key. Now the next line is exactly what I had before, exactly the same thing you did for the other key generator, which is going to be, I'm going to hold my DSA key, DS key here in this variable that I call my DSA key, which you can call it whatever you want, and it's going to be of this type secret key, and I'm going to use my whatever the key generator I have, which is called, in my case, is called my key factory, which is of the class, my key factory that you see here, of the class secret factory, and that I just generated that password with this line of code, generate secret key, and this is using the material that was getting from here, from whatever the bytes that came from the password. As you can see that I have two errors. So basically the errors are I have to import the libraries that I need. So let me hover over it, and you can see that I have to import these DS key specification. So let's go ahead and do that, and then error is gone. Now the next line, exactly the same thing. I have to import, as the other time, I have to import the secret key, and that's it. Now what is the problem here? So the problem here is I have to throw some kind of errors here. So throw error declaration, same as before. Let's throw the other error here. So remember, all of this is because you have to be sure that you have implemented everything here. There's no problem here at all for this. So let's just hover over it and throw that declaration there. So everything is fine now. So whenever you have those errors here, if you type everything correctly, basically what it means is you need to import the libraries, throw some errors in case the things that are implemented. All of the DES, and in case in my computer UTF-8 is all implemented there, so no problem. So that's it. So I created my DSA key coming from my password that is here. That is my DSA key, and it doesn't matter how many times I run this program, my DSA key is not going to change at all because it's exactly the same thing here. Now, one thing that you need to be careful here is that when you generate this DSA key, it's gonna use only, this is very important, and so you have to pay attention here, it's gonna use only the first 8 bytes of your password. So for example, if I put this password here, this password that I have over here, and I just reduce it, but I keep my same 8 first bytes, then my DSA key is not going to change. So that's the problem you see with the DSA DES is because it's only using 8 bytes or 64 bits basically. So whatever is after the 8th byte is gonna ignore it in your password. So if I put, for example, 0 here, I'm not gonna show you, but that is gonna generate exactly the same key, my DSA key, as I didn't have the 0. So that's what it is. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Whenever you generate a DSA key with a password, you need to make sure, and then you have to be aware that the DSA key is gonna depend only and only on the first 8 bytes. Whatever is after the 8 byte, this is gonna just ignore it basically. So it doesn't matter how long your password is actually in the DSA key. If you wanna generate the DSA key, it just only depends on the first 8 bytes. Now, the Eclipse application is saying that, okay, you're not using DSA key. Yes, I'm not using it because I'm not using it to encrypt anything. I'm just generating the key. Now that key will have to be used in a cipher that is a DSA cipher. Now, that's not the goal of these videos. The goal of these videos is how to generate the keys, and we actually achieve that goal. So the two ways to generate it: you let Java generate the keys, or you generate your DSA key from a password. And remember, very important, only the first 8 bytes of your password are used for the DSA key. Doesn't matter how long it is, doesn't matter if you have 100 characters, it's gonna take only the first 8 bytes. And that's it, because remember, DSA key is gonna use at the very beginning, it's gonna use 8 bytes or 64 bits. So let's stop the video here. In the next video, we'll talk about how to use these keys to encrypt and decrypt messages in Java. So I'll see you in the next video.